Hello everyone. In this video we are going to continue on with our series of using the same application, but instead of using MongoDB we are going to use MySQL. So MySQL is a relational database, which is different from MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. And so they each have different trade-offs. MySQL, you can't just start inserting data. You need to actually set up a schema, how your tables are going to look, which data you're expecting, and any constraints that you have on them. So that's the first thing we are going to do. We are going to run this command uh, using the SQL language, which MySQL and all other relational databases use or use a form of. And we create the database. Next, we are going to switch to that database so that we are actually using it. And next, we are going to create the table to hold our pairs. So that table, we're going to call it pairs. It's going to have two different columns. The first is key ID, so that's going to hold our keys. And the second is value. So key, unfortunately, in MySQL is a reserved keyword, so we can't call the column key easily without fussing over using quotation marks all the time. So we're just going to, for ease, call this key underscore ID. And both of these columns are of type varchar and then 99. So varchar means variable characters or variable number of characters, and it can be so this what the values that we store can be up to 99 characters long, or they can be as low as one character. Um, and then not null means that we can't store null values into this row. And then primary key, it does a number of things, but most important to us is that it makes sure that we can only insert one value with key underscore ID as the one value with the same. So we can insert the same key more than once. One key ID will always match one value. So we've created that table. Here are a couple of example SQL statements. This is what we're going to see in our server application. So here we are inserting a value, and here we are finding or selecting a value. So here we try to match, we insert a pair with the key ID of a key and the value of a value, and here we select it we select it based on the key ID, a key, and as expected, it finds a value. Okay. So in order to set up our server to work with MySQL, we first changed the MongoDB package to the MySQL package, and this is the latest version of the MySQL node package as of the creation of this video. And you run npm install just as before, and it'll pull down that package. Our server, you'll see that's exactly the same. The only thing that I've changed is from using my MongoDB to my MySQL. So then that's the file that contains all of my MySQL code. Everything else is exactly the same. The only thing we change is, again, from my MongoDB to my MySQL. Here's the MySQL file. In this file, first thing we do is we get that MySQL application or package, and we have this private function to create the connection. So it's going to connect to localhost using the user mat, and it's going to connect to the database chapter 10 video, which we just created over here. And it'll time out after 10 seconds if MySQL isn't running for some reason. It connects to the database using that information, and it returns that connection. So here we have, same as before, we have two functions, save and get. In our save function, it gets that connection. As opposed to the MongoDB package, the MySQL package just uses query, and we can write in this SQL language queries just as before. So this insert into pairs values question mark, So that's the same format as this SQL statement here. The only difference is when we're coding the application, we don't know what the actual values are going to be that we're going to be inserting, since those come from the client application. So we just put question mark, question mark. The next parameter are those values that we get from the client. So the first question mark is going to match up to this key, and the second question mark is going to be matched with the value. So the module handles inserting those values into the SQL statement and running it on the database. Database, similar to MongoDB, will return either an error or a result. If it's an error, we're going to throw it to be handled by the server.js file. And otherwise, it's going to log to the console that was successful, close the connection to MySQL, and send back the callback save pair to storage. So I'm going to save the value here, and we see that it successfully saved the pair to storage. So that message matches what was sent right here. Next, we are going to go over the get function. So this function is going to retrieve the pair from the database. So this time we use that other query that we saw, the select statement, and same as before, question mark, because we don't actually know what the key is going to be that we're going to be searching for. That's supplied by the client, and so that's our second parameter. Since there's only one question mark in the statement, we're only supplying one parameter at runtime. We don't need to put in an array. We can just put the value right into straight as the parameter. And this function here is the callback. So this is what the MySQL module is going to call back once it's either successful or it's failed. So it provides the error, same as before. If there's an error, we'll throw the error up to server.js. Otherwise, it has the rows with the results. So that would be this information here. And the final parameter is the fields. So in that case, it would just be this is the one field that we selected. In our case, that's not important to us since we know that it's the value field. If the rows length, so if we retrieve 0 rows, that means that we know we've had an issue, so we'll return that error callback. So that'll happen if I just put in a key that we haven't entered, and we get back the message key not found from server.js. Otherwise, we log it to the console successfully and close the connection and send the callback with the proper value. So get value and successfully found the value this as we input. So as you can see, all we've changed is the MySQL to use the relational database instead of MongoDB or an array in memory. Otherwise, the client code has stayed the same throughout the series, and we've just changed our data storage format. Good luck!